And now to discuss the score sheet of the country's democracy 23 years after, we have joining us this morning New Central's chief researcher, Abdul Latif Ahmed. Good morning, Mr. Ahmed. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning and thank you.
All right, 23 years, it's a pretty long time. A lot of people might believe that giant steps could have been taken in 23 years. Do you think we have taken giant steps, and are we in a better place now?
Thank you. We have come a long way between 1999 and this moment. We have been through a lot of electoral processes and democratic experimentations that has shown that the journey may be slow, but so long we are towing the path that is understandably the best culture in the world of evolving leadership in a gradual process of collective a better spread representation. I can say that we have come a long way and we are doing pretty well. We could have done better if not for the, will I say, greed and the stakes that are high in terms of political players in the system. Laws can be made, instruments of democratic practices can be put in place, but if the players and implementers of these practices are not looking at the brighter side of things, then things cannot really be as smooth as we should have wanted it.
All right, let's talk about the 1993 elections and the role that it's played in democracy. I mean, it was the first time we saw lots of young people throw themselves behind a candidate, throw themselves behind an election, and unfortunately, things turned out the way that they did. What would you say was the impact of the 1993 election, and do you think MKO Abiola will be proud of how far we've come?
1993 was supposed to be that year when Nigeria would take the bull by the horns and define the nation, our nationhood. However, it was cut short by, again, like I did mention, greed of political players in the polity, those who were political players, those in the military, the political elite and all of that. What we now have is, as a result of the misappropriation of the popular will of the people at that time, in 1993, for which it became almost unsustainable for military leaders to remain in power. And therefore, we now have what others have died for, others had cried for, others had labored for. And we should be happy that we now celebrate on June 12th a constant reminder that there was a time when Nigerians believed in leadership, they believed in the words of the government, but because of the failure of government to stand by the popular will of the people, we started getting things wrong. People started believing in government lesser, people participated less in government activities. It was almost impossible for anyone to believe whatever was coming from government. And so it therefore means that upholding that day, ensuring we have democratic ethos and democratic ideals was meant to return us to that time when it will not matter, for instance, if flag bearers were from the same religion. It will not matter if they were of the same faith. It will not matter even if they were from the same region, because what mattered most at that time was that people wanted to get away with military rule. They wanted to see a clean bill. They wanted Nigerians to belong to the committee of nations that are getting things right.
All right, Latif, let's also talk about a good thing Olive already mentioned, the elections in 1993. I want you to also speak on, the journey so far and strengthening the electoral process and the leadership recruitment process, to be precise.
Yeah.
Do you think in 23 years we've done well enough in that regard? Do Nigerians believe in the electoral process more? Is there any faith, in that aspect of our democracy that, we have the power, Nigerian citizens have the power, or are we really just, hanging in there?
Okay, so I will say that we have come a long way considering how much laws we have put in place, how much instruments we have put in place to ensure that we have smoother elections, we have more transparent elections. For instance, elections in 1999 was not as thorough as the subsequent elections that came after it. And then again, elections that came in 2015 was popularly, it had popular participation. However, when you realize that we have technology being embedded in the process, people understand that it is almost impossible to rig elections now because you can verify, you can call for the ballots and verify what it was at that time. It's now almost impossible for you to have ballot snatching because you could snatch at your own risk because elections in such a region will be cancelled. Again, you can hardly have mass thumbprinting because if there's any sign of electoral malpractices, whoever is aggrieved can call for recounting and verification of all of that. So we have come a long way. We could have done better because there's a lot of time and energy and money put in place to ensure some of these things happen. For instance, we should by now have centralized our database. We would not need to have too many duplicated database. The data we need in electioneering is almost the same as we need in our banks. It's almost the same as we need to renew our passports and all of that. You have a centralized database. You have a more unified system of verifying, and of course, having your PVCs if you need to replace any one of them. Some of these things do not need to be as strenuous as they are at the moment because there's a lot of complaints, worry and concerns from Nigerians who are unable to get theirs in good time.
All right. During the speech yesterday by the president, he spoke so strongly about assuring Nigerians that we would have a peaceful and a smooth transition of power come 2023 elections. What do you think about this as we wrap up this conversation in a few seconds?
It's a wish, it's a hope, and I believe that those in the security sector will put in all their best. And again, it largely depends on the stakes from the political elites. If they want it to be peaceful, it will be peaceful. It will depend on the rhetorics, the campaigns, the tangents of campaign, because there are fault lines that we must be wary of, so that we do not fracture nascent democracy.
All right.